But overall, the justices seemed very skeptical of this challenge to Trump's ability to be on the ballot under the argument that he engaged in insurrection.
The U.S. Supreme Court overturns Colorado's decision barring Trump from the ballot. The U.S. Supreme Court, Donald Trump, moments ago, his reaction
on something that will be spoken about 100 years from now and 200 years from now, extremely important. Essentially, you cannot take somebody out of a race because an opponent would like to have it that way. And it has...
Donald Trump, moments ago, his reactions to the U.S. Supreme Court ruling overturning Colorado's lower court's decision to bar him from running in that state. The United States Supreme Court has made a groundbreaking decision, overturning Colorado's lower court's ruling legal precedent. Now, the justices opted for an approach that emphasizes inferred implications rather than a direct measure of the law, setting a precedent that is both unprecedented and ominous in its potential ramifications. Now, the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to overturn the Colorado's lower court's ruling to bar Trump from the ballot was based, in my estimation, on the implication of the law and not the spirit or measure of the law and the Constitution. This therefore sets a precedent, imbuing the justices with powers to challenge the Constitution by asserting their subjective opinions on the implications of following the spirit of the laws. Now, let us see what their decision means for our lives going forward, because in effect, that is what pertains from their finality on whether Trump violates the Constitution and deserves to run again. It opens the door for opportunists who may want to repeat January 6. Now, while the courts kicked the measure or the matter to the politicians, it is important to point out that politicians are never best at making laws about themselves that limit their powers, and while we wait for that to happen, a repeat offender has the green light to do so again, following from the justice's decision. Now, according to reports from the Associated Press, the Supreme Court's decision marks a turning point in the ongoing debate over Trump's role in the 2024 presidential primaries, rejecting efforts by several states to exclude Trump from the ballot due to his involvement in the Capitol riot. The court emphasized that the authority to regulate presidential candidates lies within the purview of Congress rather than individual states. Now, this case represents a pivotal moment in constitutional interpretation as it grapples with the implications of the 14th Amendment post-Civil War provisions. Specifically, the court's ruling addresses the amendment intent to disqualify individuals who have engaged in insurrection from holding public office again. Now, for further insights into the evolving story, you can refer to comprehensive coverage by the Associated Press entitled "Supreme Court Restores Trump to 2024 Primary Ballots." I'm Ronaldo McKenzie of the Neoliberal Round podcast. Thank you for listening or watching this brief on the Neoliberal Round podcast. And of course, what is very important to what we are saying is this. This is very important. The groundbreaking decision to overturn Colorado's lower court's ruling that barred former President Donald Trump from appearing on the ballot. What we're saying is that the decision of the Supreme Court to do this diverges from a strict interpretation of the law, as it hinges on subjective interpretation rather than adhering strictly to legal precedent. Now, the justices opted for an approach that emphasizes what I have said, what I call inferred implications, what they infer, the implications from subjective analysis, rather than a direct measure of the law, rather than doing what lawyers or what the legal system is supposed to be doing. And of course, this sets a precedence. But we will see what happens, what America would look like from this. But this is interesting, and this is quite palpable and powerful. But what we know now is that Donald Trump has the green light to run in Colorado, and any state that's trying to ban him from running in I think I think recently Illinois was trying to do that as well. So of course they will now have to upend their efforts, because now what we are hearing is that Donald Trump has the green light to run in any state any state that is trying to prevent him from running, based on them bringing a lawsuit as it relates to Section 6 of the 14th Amendment. I wonder, what does that mean for Castro's lawsuit? Does that has any bearing in the Castro v. Trump lawsuit? We haven't been able to reach Mr. Castro, and I know his attorney, he has his own legal battles, and his attorneys have advised him to withdraw from the public temporarily until after the proceedings. We're not sure indefinitely. We're not sure. So we will follow up with him. We're not sure what's happening on that front. But this is major news for Mr. Donald Trump and his team. And so we will continue to follow the story. This is the Neoliberal Realm Podcast. So they don't totally disagree with Colorado, but at the same time they're saying that, first of all, they believe it's patchwork. It has to be it's patchwork. It has to be done by Colorado. Can't make a decision for broader Americans, and so they said, and it should include the Congress and the politicians, and so in a sense they kicked it back down. They in a sense they're saying that it has to be some kind of, the politicians, Congress has to pass some legislation. We know what the I don't believe that. I do not believe that Congress can pass legislation that limit or manage them in any significant way. We know, say for example, John Castro has brought an indictment, has brought a lawsuit on the same matter, but he is bringing this lawsuit on the basis that he is a candidate, and in some instances Congress has passed legislation or policy that says that you have to have standing. So it's becoming more and more difficult in this country to challenge people who abuse powers. That's what it's telling me. Because now they're creating certain rules and requirements and standards whereby people can bring a challenge to people who are in office. Those who have violated their oath of office or whatever the case might be, they have to have standing. And I believe that it is within Colorado's interest, because I think states have rights too, but of course the courts are pointing, but more than anything else, the justices point to the implication or the ramification of their decision, which then I don't believe that it is a matter of the implication, because there are several implications. There's the implication of Colorado's decision. So they're saying, well, the implication or the ramification of Colorado's decision, what it would imply, it would open the door for other states doing the same thing, so on and so forth. But the implication, there's also another implication, is that it provides an opportunity for people who may want to do this. It opens the door for people or officers of political, people who are serving in office may want to do another January 6th. It opens the door for that. So I do not. So, and then again, I don't understand how the judges are basing their opinions on implications rather than on the spirit and the measure of the law. They're okay. I mean, but we'll see what happens. This is the Neoliberal Podcast.
On something that will be spoken about 100 years from now and 200 years from now. Extremely important. Essentially, you cannot take somebody out of a race because an opponent would like to have it that way. And it has...
Donald Trump, moments ago, his reactions to the U.S. Supreme Court ruling overturning Colorado's lower court's decision to bar him from running in that state. And he is here talking about the fact that you cannot stop someone from pursuing their dreams and their goals. They've tried it several times, and he's absolutely right. He has contested almost every single political battle, and he has survived, and that's who true American heroes are. I'm not here contending or doing a promo for Mr. Trump, but I'm being an analyst there, and I'm being fair. I'm fair. I try to be fair on all fronts, and I'm going to call it like it is. He has withstood the test of time. That's who many leaders, charismatic leaders even of Hitler's type, as well, have survived the test of time. But let's see what this bodes for us. We'll continue to follow the story. This is the Never Go Around podcast.